feathers are often used in the lining. However, one of the most striking aspects of grassfinch behavior happens before the nesting season begins. This is their extraordinary courtship displays, in which the diamond firetail is perhaps the preeminent performer. The details vary from species to species, but the broad outline is similar in all. As the mating season approaches, a courting male begins a dance that consists of a series of rapid bounces up and down on his perch, usually a twig high in a dead tree. These jerky movements become so vigorous that the perch itself often bounces up and down in tune with his movements. Performs this dance with a grass stem, anything up to 1 meter in length and usually held by one end. He may approach a female to perform this display, or the female might fly up to join him on his perch. As the display intensifies, he turns his head to her, peering downward in the same posture nestlings use in begging for food from their parents. Mating takes place either at the nest or on the display perch. As her nest nears completion, the female prepares to lay her clutch of eggs, a process that needs a substantial boost in both her protein intake to form the egg and her calcium intake to form the shell. Calcium is available from several sources, including any bleached bones that might be lying about on the ground. Common in dry, open woodlands throughout southeastern Australia, but not Tasmania, the diamond firetail feeds almost entirely on the ground. The birds usually forage in flocks, even during the nesting season. The problem with seeds as food is that nature sees to it that they are protected with a hard, tough outer covering, or husk. Cereal grains resist even human jaws unless they're first ground into flour. The seeds that grassfinches eat may indeed be much smaller, but not necessarily any easier to crush. This is where the significance of the grassfinch's distinctive conical bill comes in. The fact that it comes abruptly to a short, sharp point means that it delivers formidable leverage at the point where the tips of the mandibles come together, on the same general principle as pliers or garden shears. In the northern tropics lives a grassfinch that seldom leaves the immediate vicinity of water. The crimson finch, like the manakin, is a bird of grasslands, and it too feeds largely on half-ripe seeds gathered off the ground. It also eats large quantities of insects. It is in fact perhaps the most insectivorous of all the grassfinches, as this pair committing mayhem on a swarm of aquatic mites enthusiastically demonstrates. Though it has declined in parts of its natural range, especially pandanus swamps, the crimson finch has adapted well to changes in land management, and is now, for example, one of the commonest of small birds in the sugarcane fields of northeastern Queensland. A rather unsociable bird, it lives in family parties rather than flocks. Preferred nesting sites include the base of pandanus fronds, although, unlike other grass finches, it quite often nests on or near houses or sheds. Across much of the tropical north, where the grass finches reach their greatest diversity, they are very much in decline. Fire may be one of the reasons for this. These days, the effects of natural fires are multiplied many times by fires deliberately lit by humans. It might be true that burning clears the ground and makes seeds easier to find, but on the other hand, it destroys the plants that cast the seed in the first place. The details remain unclear, but there's little doubt that overburning has had far-reaching effects on tropical grasslands, probably to the overall detriment of grass finches. This glamorous bird may be the chief victim. Once, the star finch occurred from Cape York and the vicinity of Rockhampton right across the tropical north to the Pilbara and southward into New South Wales. But the last half-century has seen a severe decline, and it's now common only in the far northwest. Somewhat more than other grass finches, it favours lush, tall, streamside grassland of the kind most seriously damaged by fire and slowest to regenerate afterwards. So it seems likely that habitat degradation might be the chief cause of its decline. The starfinch lives in small groups, typically about 20 in number. It is rather sedentary, not given to the nomadic wanderings that characterize several other grass finch species. It occasionally feeds on insects such as flying termites, but its chief food consists of unripe seeds gathered on the stem. Only when forced by drought or fire does it descend to forage on fallen grass seeds on the ground. Even then, the flocks stay together, young and old alike. Juvenile birds are nondescript brown, and can sometimes be difficult to identify if it should happen that there are no adults close by to give the clue to their identity. The grass finches are a colourful clan, but the Gouldian finch undeniably outshines them all. Aside from its exotic plumage, one notable characteristic of the Gouldian finch is that it is polymorphic. Individuals in any population may be red-headed, black-headed or yellow-headed, although the last is very rare and black-headed birds usually outnumber redheads about 3 to 1. It is also the most seriously endangered of all Australian grassfinches. Though it remains common in some remote areas, its numbers have nevertheless declined markedly in recent decades. The Gouldian is also notable as the only grassfinch that habitually nests in cavities in trees or termite mounds, although 1 or 2 other species occasionally do so. Often the birds nest in groups of half a dozen pairs or so, and sometimes several pairs may even share the same cavity. The nest itself is rudimentary, just a few wisps of grass to line the cavity, and sometimes not even that. When they fledge about 3 weeks after hatching, the juveniles look plain, dull, greenish brown, very different from their spectacular parents. Gouldian finches are partly migratory. As grasses dry out in the interior during the dry season, the birds drift towards the coast, spreading back inland as the following wet brings rain to rejuvenate the interior grasslands. Always they need frequent access to water. In especially hot weather and towards the end of the dry, hundreds may come to drink at the vanishing water holes. They gather in the tops of trees nearby. Then, when all is safe, they fly down in groups to drink together. As a group, grassfinches have been affected more than most by the far-reaching changes brought about by European settlement of Australia. Water is now far more widely available, but on the other hand, fires are more frequent. And large numbers of cattle now wander across the landscape, their grazing exerting a profound influence on the relative numbers and seeding patterns of various grass species. Few Australian grassfinches have been unaffected by these changes, and several, especially the star and Gouldian finches, have been severely reduced in both range and number. But now, a great deal of research and conservation effort is focused on finding ways of reversing this trend, to ensure that colourful and vivacious sights like this, now so rare, will once again become common across Australia's tropical north.